And getting ready to do her U.S. tour with a stop in Texarkana, of course, coming down to the basement. The evil HR lady's here, Suzanne Lucas. How are you?
I am so excited to be back in the basement. I needed a little dose of darkness and mold.
Right. I could see you looking around, Suzanne, and I know as an HR person, it's going to be your job to say, these conditions might not be, but keep it to yourself, okay? Just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know what the OSHA regulations are for lack of lighting, but, I can look it up.
Well, before we get lost in that, because I do not want to go down that rabbit hole, I've got a LinkedIn piece. Of course, we're going to talk about later. You're coming to the United States, and for all the, we'll talk about who this is for, but generally HR people, managers, this is a fantastic opportunity for them to interface with people who can make your life so much easier. But we'll get back to that. For now, what I'd like to talk about first are some of these amazing statistics that we see. First of all, nobody uses the pros in their company, the HR people that really, what does an HR person do, Suzanne? You set up the benefits, you make sure they're working right. You tell me all the different things HR people do.
Well, that could be a 3-hour-long episode. What people see us do is hiring, benefits, and firing. What we do is so much bigger than that. And there are things that are available from HR departments that you may not have any idea about that can help your career. Depending on the company, some companies will offer you the opportunity to sit down with someone and map out a career. Some companies won't, of course, but some companies do that.
What's that, like a career? Is that like a career specialist, a career trainer?
It would be like an employee relations person. And they're not going to map out your career outside the company.
Sure.
But like, this is where you need to go within the company. And these are the skills that you're lacking. And they can help you arrange training and education to get you there. And sometimes, especially in bigger companies, that stuff is offered in-house. You just need to know about it. And a lot of times it's your manager that tells you about it. But if your manager doesn't know about it, you're not going to find out about it. It's important to sit down and find out those type of things. And then there are some things like the employee assistance program, which almost all companies have if they have insurance, that if you are struggling in any area of your life, or if you're buying a house and you want a real estate attorney, or you're getting divorced and you need a referral to a divorce attorney, or you need financial planning, you need a therapist, your employee assistance program can set that up for you. And they actually, HR can refer you to it. Anybody can call, but they'll let you know this exists. But what you tell the employee assistance program is absolutely confidential. The HR people will never find out it was you that called. Your boss will never find out. So if you're feeling suicidal and you want to call the employee assistance program, no one in the company is going to know that you called or what you asked for when you called.
I bet that gets a little dicier, though, at a small company.
Yes and no. All the employee assistance program reports back is someone called.
Okay.
That's it. So, if you want to go around and try to figure out who called and for what, more power to you. But they don't necessarily know that you called because you were suicidal, or you called because you're looking for a financial planner, or you called because, just about anything they can help you with.
Yeah. So
this
is always like a third-party company, like we interviewed the people from Jellyvision last fall. So it would be a third party like that.
Yeah, it's third party.
Gotcha.
Third party.
I want to give you some statistics that won't surprise you, but I think will surprise a lot of our audience. These come from a company called Salvo. Worldwide, only 13% of employees are engaged in their line of work. 13% of employees engaged. Does that surprise you?
Worldwide, no, it does not surprise me at all. Because let's be honest, work is work. And in the United States, we tend to have more of an idea of work should be fulfilling. So if we're going to talk worldwide, though, in a lot of countries, nobody's looking for fulfilling. They're looking just for food on the table.
But I know plenty of people in the United States working, and so do you, that are unfulfilled at work too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There are. And here's another secret. work doesn't have to be super fulfilling. You know, when we talk about work-life balance, it's that life part afterwards. I mean, it's great if your work can be fulfilling, but it's fine too if it's not, if it's meeting your needs.
But how do you then get productivity high with people that are unfulfilled? Do you then have your HR people and your management team work on all the benefits of getting it done quickly so you can do other things, or maybe giving people support outside of business? Like, how do you facilitate keeping morale high if it's an unfulfilling job?
You know, it really is going to depend on the job, but the most important thing is the manager and the manager's relationship. And it's one of those things that this could be like, I don't know, like let's assume you're a kindergarten teacher and you get all these adorable 5-year-olds that are, you know, blowing snot all over you. I could never be a kindergarten teacher. But let's theorize that this is a super fulfilling job. You know, you teach kids how to read and they say, I love you. And it's just wonderful. Everything about it is wonderful. Theoretically. Never do it. But if your boss is a complete jerk, that job is not going to be fulfilling. It's going to be stressful. You know, if your principal is always, you know, walking in, checking on you and saying, you know, Mr. Saul-Sehy, you suck. You know, you said that wrong to that adorable child. You're going to become stressed out no matter what the job is, right? It's not going to be good. On the other hand, going back in the day when I used to work at Burger King, I loved that job because the people I worked with were so awesome. But there's nothing awesome about taking orders, making food, cleaning the dining room. You know, nobody's like, ooh, this is fulfilling. But it was the coworkers that made the difference and the bosses that made the difference. So if you can work with your managers to make them better managers, it can make boring work or tedious work or downright icky work still be a good, fulfilling job.
Where does the HR function fit into that? Is it HR's job to kind of report the mood of the workplace or to recommend that manager X maybe get some more training? Like, tell me how HR makes that better.
HR, well, it's going to depend on the company. You know, there's no like, here are the rules of HR. But what HR should be doing, first of all, they should be looking at employee engagement. They should be asking employees, you know, if you're happy, what can we do better? But here's the problem with asking that. A lot of times, HR departments will run these surveys and people will answer. And then the CEO, the senior leadership team is like, no, we don't want to make any changes. All these slackers, they just want, you know, 4-day weekends or 3-day weekend. We all want 4-day weekends.
I do.
Weekends.
Hey, yes. 5-day weekend for me. Right.
Great. Let's do it. You know, that they can have this thing. So the first rule of asking an employee engagement survey is don't ask if you're not willing to make changes. If you find out that something is going on, you need to offer that coaching. You know, there's things that are illegal and things that are not. So if you come to me as your HR person and say, hey, my boss is sexually harassing me, by law, I now have to investigate that one way or another, whether it's happening, whether you're making it up, how extreme it is, you know, all that, because that's illegal. If you come up to me and say, hey, my boss is a micromanaging nitwit, there's nothing that's illegal about that. So legally, I don't have to investigate that. I don't have to talk to the boss. I can say to you, suck it up, buttercup, or find a new job. A good HR department will say, let's talk about this and investigate and do the same thing that they would do for something that was illegal, because this is a really destructive thing to have, and then work with the manager to fix those problems. And one of the things that companies really are terrible at is giving managers training. A lot of times the promotion to manager is because you're good at doing, but doing is different than managing. And so HR should really be there giving that training for the managing part of things. And like I said, a lot of managers don't know what's out there and available for them.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And you're right. People get promoted to this point that they don't know what they're doing. And it's a new leading people. I'm even learning from this coach that I have now, Suzanne, that leading people is a whole different skill set than managing people, right? Managing people, managing the project and making sure X, Y, Z happen is different than showing people where the ball's headed and helping us all get there.
Yeah, they are completely different skill sets. And a lot of companies are just like, okay,
yeah,
good, you're the boss.
We talked to...
Get your performance appraisals in.
Right. We talked to Ashley Goodall, who with a gentleman named Marcus Buckingham. The two of them wrote this piece for the Harvard Business Review and then turned it into a book. And Ashley, when he was on the show, echoed exactly what you're saying, which is that forget about all this money companies are spending on telling the outside world that they have a great culture. Culture is the people that you have lunch with every day. If that boss and those coworkers suck, your culture is going to be horrible. While culture at the next table is phenomenal. It sounds like that's kind of exactly where you're at.
It absolutely is the case because it's who you deal with. I mean, there can be an overarching company culture for sure that comes down from the top. But within each department, and the bigger the company is, the more your individual department depends on this. And company messaging doesn't matter. There was a study that just came out that I just find fascinating, is that tech companies that sponsored Black Lives Matter and put it on their websites and gave money to the organization were 20% less likely to have Black employees. So they had 20% fewer Black employees than tech companies that didn't say anything.
Really?
Yes, really. I can send it to you. It's crazy pants. This is what we talk about when we have cultural disconnect. So somebody in the public relations department sat down with the CEO and said, this is good for our image. We're going to put this up. But then it didn't change the company culture at all. It didn't influence hiring. It didn't influence retention. It was putting a phrase on a website and, writing a check.
They're putting a Band-Aid on it.
Putting a Band-Aid on it and saying, pat us on the back, look at us, look how great we are. But they didn't make any changes. And so you have a lot of companies, you see this all the time on job postings, flexible, family friendly, blah, blah, blah. And it's not the case at all. It's not the case at all. And a lot of that, of course, depends upon your particular manager as well, because you can have a company where, the marketing department has a great culture and they are flexible and they do this. And then the finance department is run with an iron fist. And, if you're 30 seconds late, you get written up and just, it can be a complete opposite thing, even though technically it's the same company.
Another facet of this discussion that is in this LinkedIn study that we'll link to, by the way, if you get our show guide, stackingbenjamins.com/stacker, you have maybe already seen this, but an industry-wide study of over 2,500 people found that 55% of workers would take less pay to have more fun at work. So when you talk about the iron fist, right? Though, Suzanne, that manager's going, if I don't use an iron fist, well, then stuff's not going to happen. People are going to walk all over me. This is going to be hell. How do you change that? I don't know if it's that mindset, or does that mindset need to be changed?
There are people that absolutely, wouldn't put their shoes on in the morning if someone didn't tell them to. Those people exist. You don't want to hire them. If you have employees that cannot function without that iron fist, the problem is you in your hiring. Are you paying too little money? Are your benefits crappy? Is that why you can't get good quality people to work for you? On the other hand, a lot of people will do better if you step back. And here is a personal example. My oldest child did online school this year, and it was a self-paced online school program. So she just had to have everything done by June 22nd, which was yesterday. For the first 6 months, I spent every day, come on, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. And finally she was like, I will get it done. Leave me alone. And I was like, I can't leave you alone. I'm your mother. I can't do that.
It's part of my job description not to.
It's my job description. I need to bother you every day. And she was like, leave me alone. I will do it. She said, you can remind me every once in a while and ask me how it's going, but don't tell me to do it every day. Do you know how freaking stressful that was for me to step back? And did you know that she ended up writing 2 papers and doing 2 final exams in the last 2 days of the semester? Yes, she did. Did she finish everything? Yes, she did. I'm like, I think that if I had pushed her every day, it would have just ruined the relationship between us. And she may or may not have gotten it done because she's in that, if you tell me to do it, I won't do it phase.
Well, and I'm also thinking, not to cut you up, but I'm also thinking, Suzanne, that she probably learned some lessons around that way. Because I remember, when I wasn't given a lot of feedback, like in this case, you step back on purpose, not giving a lot of, like I learned that I had to not try to eat the entire elephant in the last 24 hours, or it wasn't going to be good.
Well, and she actually said that to me. She said, I've learned a lot about time management. I've learned that I'm going to do things differently next year. And, there are some things that, oh my gosh, mom was right about that. And she admits that she did that, but it was that learning process. And, even for me, I work far better with deadlines and that type of thing. I'm not saying as a manager, you just need to be like, hey, do whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes that stepping back, the person really can step forward and shine. And you can always step in. It wasn't like I said, okay, you do this on your own, go live on the streets and then come back when it's done. It was like, I'm still here. I'm still supportive, trying to keep my mouth shut, which I didn't do perfectly. But the job of a manager isn't just to leave people alone, but is to check in and say, what help can I give you?
But I love this idea because it also, you're exuding this idea, and you haven't said this verbatim, but you seem to be exuding this idea, Suzanne, that your goal is really to be teaching these people things in the way that they'll learn best. And sometimes we have to learn best by, if it's not a mission critical thing, let people fall on something that's not mission critical. So when the mission critical stuff comes up later, their readiness level is far better. I feel like as you're telling this story, you're helping your daughter with her resume.
Sure. Because she was learning what she needs to do to succeed, and not how to make my mom happy or how to suck up to a teacher. And this was a really valuable thing for her. And it was a practice where, practice what I preach moment for me, because I say this to managers all the time. Step back, don't micromanage, let people fail. And then when it comes to doing it yourself, it's a little bit harder. And because the stakes are real here, if my kid flunks 11th grade, that's a huge problem, right? And that she'll never move out. She'll live in my basement. That's the problem.
Yes.
I'm sending her to live in your basement.
Don't you can see how full it is here. Don't send her my way.
Exactly. So it's the practice what you preach thing. And it can be really hard on a manager, but also HR is there for you to help coach you through that, because it's not abandoning your employees. Abandoning your employees is just as bad as micromanaging them. You want to be there. You want to build a relationship. But one of the things that leaders say, how can I help you, instead of do this to help me?
I want to end on this question because it sure seems to me that there's a correlation. You're on the last Wednesday's podcast. OG and I took a question from somebody about being a landlord, and we talked about how you can solve a lot of problems as a landlord by getting the right tenant, right? By looking at those flags. You seem to be saying the same thing about employees, Suzanne, that a lot of the problems that companies experience can make or break things if you do better hiring.
This is so true. It is so true. I'm working with a client right now on reducing their turnover rate. And the job, the company is a warehouse. And warehouse work is hard. Let's be honest. It's one of those jobs where it's not super fulfilling. It's hard physical labor. And so we've been talking about, well, in your recruiting, how are you doing this? And so they're giving tours to the candidates and having them walk up and down the length of the warehouse and see exactly what's going on. And it's reducing the number of people that want the job, but it's increasing the retention otherwise, because instead of just trying to say, okay, this is fabulous, it's not hard, you just pick up boxes and put it in the truck. Pick up boxes, put it in the truck, easy peasy, right? Anybody can do it. You can sell it that way, or you can say, look, you will be putting this many steps a day and you will be lifting this and you will be having to look out for the forklifts and we're going to walk around here and this is the clothes you have to wear and you have to wear the steel-toed boots and you have to, so they really have a concept of what they're getting into. So it increases that retention when you're honest about the job, and then also working on training the managers to be better managers. Because as I said, I love my job at Burger King, but let's be honest, it's a crappy job. It's grease, it's ketchup, it's mayonnaise, which is disgusting. And I had to put it on things and people were like, I'd like extra mayonnaise on that. What's wrong with these people? It's gross. But I had a good time because I had good managers and I had good coworkers. And so if you can build that relationship, and so, she's working on making sure that her managers are getting trained to be better managers and making sure that in the hiring process, they're more honest about what's going on so that they get the right people in the door in the first place. And one of those things is salary. I'm sorry for managers and company owners that are like, I want to pay bottom dollar. Sure, you can pay bottom dollar, but you're going to get bottom employees if you do that.
There's a study, but part of the study, though, says that a bunch of people, well, we talked about this earlier, that people would take less money if the job were more fun. True to a certain extent?
I think that is something that people say, but they don't really mean.
Well, but but I know, wait a minute, Suzanne, I know that Disney doesn't pay their employees a ton of money. And yet I've had so many, magical experience stories from employees at Disney where it's just seemed to be ingrained in that culture that they get the most out of people without paying them a ton of money, and their benefits aren't really, their benefits are good, but they're not phenomenal.
I can't speak to Disney, but, you definitely have that reputation that Disney has, and Disney has a reputation for training and developing people. Disney does have a reputation for training HR people. And if you're seeing it as a stepping stone on your career, then I can see that. But if I come in for a job interview to work for Stacking Benjamins and you say, it's going to be a 25% pay cut for you, Suzanne, but I promise will be fun. Am I going to take that job? No, I'm not. I'm not. Even though I know it would be fun.
I'm so disappointed. I'm so.
Were you going to offer me a job at the end of this?
That's the way most of our interviews end. We offer every person we interview a job. Please come take over the podcast. Please. If somebody can do this besides me.
I lied. I would absolutely. But I rule with an iron fist.
Which could be a problem here because Mom already
will tell a joke right now.
Mom already has the iron fist, as you know, so she's already got us in line. You are embarking after you leave the basement on this tour. Tell me who you're speaking to and where you're going, because this is pretty exciting.
So, yes, I'm super excited. I, along with Brenda Neckbottle, who is Brenda the HR lady, and she just launched a best-selling book on HR of how to crawl your way from nobody to VP in HR. It's a great book. She and I are hitting 3 cities in July. On July 19th, we'll be in Baltimore, Maryland. And then on July 21st, we'll be in Dallas, Texas. And then on July 22nd, we are ending in Provo, Utah. And we are talking about how to be intentional in your career. And it's specifically targeted towards HR managers, but really any manager or anybody that wants to be a manager would be great for this. How to be intentional, and then how to communicate so people listen the first time. And this is really, really, really important when you're trying to communicate with leadership or with your employees. Either way, is how to speak so people listen the first time. And then we're wrapping it up with an active shooter training, which is a horrible thing that you need, but you need it.
Yeah,
and it can really be helpful.
So sad that you need it, but you definitely do. And I can't say enough about getting training yourself. I feel like a lot of people, an offshoot, Suzanne, of this conversation is I feel like there's a lot of people out there that go, well, you know what? My boss didn't train me, so I wasn't good at that. Or my company didn't have a training program, so I'm not good at that. Why the hell are you waiting for your boss or your company? I mean, nobody wants to get out of bed and say, I'm going to suck today at work. Like, create your own training. And then if your boss adds on, fantastic. If your boss doesn't add on, you can still succeed. But not just that, I'm also thinking that maybe if you tell your boss about the training, your boss, I would imagine, may be excited that you're coming and may want to pay for it.
This is so true. And this is one of those things that you can ask. When we talked about earlier about things that HR departments can do for you, this is something that they often have a training budget for things like this. So it's worth talking to. And you're right. Nobody cares about your career like you care about your career. So if you see a gap or if you see a place where you want to grow, by golly, go out and find the training. And of course, I'm going to say everybody needs management training, whether you're a manager now or not. It's about communicating with other people is really what we're looking at in leadership. So please come. But if you decide that you need any kind of training, I'm not really good at Excel. I need Excel training. I need project management training. All of this stuff is out there. A lot of times your HR department can help you find it either internally or externally. And a lot of times they have a budget for it.
Yeah.
You just have to ask.
And I'll tell you this as somebody that has a team of 6 people, part-time people. But if anybody on our team, and our whole team listens to this as I say it, and I'm sure they'll nod their head. If any member of my team ever comes to me and goes, Joe, I think I really want this training. Why would I say no? Like, why that really? Oh, you want to be better at your job? Screw you. I do not want you to have that training. Like, I would.
Exactly.
I am all about that, man. Let's go.
I think that's an excellent attitude. Yeah. Maybe I will come work for you with that 25% pay cut. I don't want to wake up and suck. And I know I want to work with people that don't want to suck. Like, if I'm going to have a job, even if it's moving boxes in the warehouse, let's make it so that it's, we're gamifying it or doing something to get through this day. Exactly. And, when we talk about important jobs, our definition of important jobs changed a lot with the pandemic. Yeah. That warehouse job became a super important job. And that's something that you can use with your employees. Like, you're important.
If you're in the warehouse, by the way, that has the chips that they put in the Xbox, I don't really care about the chips that go in cars that they can't get, or the ones that go in hospital things that save people's lives, like whatever. Who cares about that? The ones that go in Xboxes, I'm not going to pay $800 for an Xbox. I'm going to wait until the chip's available. And if you're sitting around in the warehouse where they do that, let's get moving, people. Priorities, right. Suzanne, priorities. How do people now that rant's over, she's like, wow, that got heated. Where do people sign up? Where do they find out more?
So they can come to my website, evilhrlady.org, or you can just Google Evil HR Lady. I will pop up. The registration information for the conference is at the top of my webpage. And we would love to see you. So evilhrlady.org.
Awesome. And you know what? We'll have a link. There's, of course, a link in the guide if you get that. If you don't, we have a link in the show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. Suzanne, great talking to you again. Glad you're in the U.S. for a couple months. Congratulations on more good stuff.
It's all about free refills of root beer. That's why I come.
That's the American way.